Peter and I'd be happy to take your questions. Yes.
Could you share your assessment of the recent expansion of the private equity and the hedge fund industries, and then both the positive and negative impacts it's having on business and on society?
We have a collision of forces going on in this country between the forces of transactions and the people who are transformative, trying to build organizations. And I think the jury's out on how that's going to come out, because we've seen from the time I got out of school, the holding period for stocks was around 9 years. Today it's 5 months. And so stocks are being traded ever shorter. But I tell you, it takes just as long, more, even though you think about just in time, it just takes just as long to create a new drug, just as long to create a new automobile, and frankly, just as long to create a great retail organization like Target. It's taken 20 years to build that organization. And so these forces are very much in opposition. And I think that great leaders have to stand in the face of that. My assessment is all the great shareholder value creators are people that built great entities for the long term. But it is true, people are making a lot of money on transactions and short-term restructuring. I actually think what private equity is doing is terrific, because it's shaking out a lot in our economy, a lot of mediocre companies. But can that build a great company? I don't know. I think the jury's really out on that, and private equity may change. In the end, private equity will morph into public equity, and hedge funds will look like any other investment vehicle, except they extract higher fees from their clients than other ways of doing business, and they get a lot of smart people working for them. So I think the jury's out on that. But I think business leaders on the business side are going to have to gird their loins to stand into that. Do you have any thought on it?
Nothing further to comment on that.
Okay, it's a tough one. Yeah.
You talked about the importance of a support group. Did you build your own men's group? Did you already find it through other CEOs or your organization?
I think it's good to have a support group of people who have very different life experiences. I have a close friend who has an AA group. He says nothing like him. He is a former CEO. I think it's good to have people with very diverse experience at different walks of life, not just former CEOs or not current CEOs. And so actually, I'd gone off on a retreat weekend. A group of us decided to stay together, and 4 of us are still there after 30 years. The other people have joined the group. I have a couples group that comes out of that we put together with 4 other couples. But just the shared experiences. I think you build your own. In my class at Harvard, we have 6-person discussion groups, leadership discussion groups. And a lot of those groups are staying together now. And those are chosen randomly to be diverse. People are not allowed just to put it together with their friends. And they find those very meaningful because they're actually sharing at a level that they say they never have in business school or with anyone else.
Yeah, and you have a great experience here, great opportunity to bring together a support team. And I keep in touch. I graduated 2005. I keep in touch with people who I really got to know here, got to hear their stories. I mean, we talk about the story in the book. But if you really get to know people, they ask this question, what matters most to you and why when you come here? If you really know that about other people and can leave here and be able to give each other feedback, really honest, straight feedback when everything goes awry, you're in a real great position. Kent Thiry called it growing redwood trees. He says, it takes a long time to grow a relationship like that, but they're going to last for a long time, and you got to hold on to those types. So.
Yeah, I mean, why is diversity important? It's not. We're not talking about quotas or anything like that. No, I think it's diversity of life's experiences. By the way, I feel the same way about boards of directors. I think board of directors composed of all CEOs are sure to fail. I think you need diverse life experiences on any kind of group. You need it in your team because that's the only way you can see things from different perspectives. And great ideas come out of different perspectives. They don't come out of everyone thinking alike. I worked in the Defense Department after I got out of business school, and we had a lot of really brilliant people that all walked off the cliff together, and maybe doing that again, and and I've seen people in business do that. Really, remember long-term capital management. These are some of the most brilliant people in the world, 2 or 3 Nobel Prize winners. They all went that way, and they were wrong. And so I think diversity is really important, and people can bring that to the table. Question over here.
George, for your talk. I want to thank you and then also have a question. My sister is 46 years old with heart disease. She's living on a Medtronics pump, so thank you. The only reason she can live is because of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sincerely. Second part is, I've worked in Silicon Valley here for a while. What do you think of forced rankings? My opinion is they're extremely life alienating.
Extremely what?
Life alienating.
Life alienating. Question is, what do I think of forced ranking? I think all these things depending on how they're done. I do believe very strongly in evaluation. I think forced ranking, I've seen it done extremely well, and I'm amazed how well it's done at a company like Exxon. I personally have reservations about it because I think it sets people off against each other, particularly if they get a clue of what their rankings are. If you saw we teach the Enron case, and one of the big problems with Enron was what they called the rank and yank system. So it's used for political reason, rank and yank. If you're below a level, you get yanked out. And I think it was very destructive. I think the key thing is, how do you build an organization which is collaborative within and competitive without? You don't want an organization that's competitive within. You want to be competitive without. And so you have to stop thinking too much internally and say, the challenge is out there. These people are going to eat our lunch. We better go after that. But to do that, we have to be collaborative. And if it takes away from collaboration, it's wrong. And have you experienced it at all?
Nothing to add to that one.
Okay. Yes?
On NPR, you were talking about religiosity versus spirituality and the importance of that in your life. And I was wondering what's your own personal view of spirituality?
Yeah. I said religion. I think not religiosity. So I'm a great respecter of religion unless it sets people off against each other or it's exclusionary. And I've just known a lot of people have pulled away from religions, organized religion, because they feel it excludes rather than opens up to, and I'm a great believer in opening up to. I think everyone in this room, has to address the existential questions of life at some point in time. Do I matter? Does my life have meaning? What contributions am I making to this earth before I go? What's really important in the world? And those essentially at their heart are spiritual questions. And there's no answer to them, but I think it's important we address them and think them through for ourselves. We can't answer. At least I've not been able to get there. Now, in my own case, my religion has been very, very key to my life and my development. But I don't proselytize. I don't try to bring people into it. But it's been very, very important for me. I think religion's a very personal thing, and I think it's important that each person think about what's really important to them, whether you have an organized faith or not. And yes.
So there's a lot of criticism by people like Mintzberg that MBAs programs are actually really bad at developing leadership, develops disillusioned 28-year-old people that think they can lead people. So how effective do you think the MBA programs are at developing leadership, and what changes, if any, you think are necessary?
I'll let Pete answer that, and then I'll answer.
One of the things about leadership perspectives, Professor O'Reilly's here and Joel Peterson, I don't know if he's here, but this class, second-year class, was designed to connect what matters most to you, why, and why with leadership, right? So your leadership is going to be an outgrowth of your values and your natural source of motivation. You need a framework. You need to be able to have tools to develop those. And this is the thesis behind the class. So if you're a first year, take it next year. That's one way.
I think definitely mixed. A lot of things Mintzberg says are correct. A lot of business school academics I know took great offense at what he said. At least people at Harvard did. But I think there's a lot of merit in what he says. I think we're of two minds in business schools today. Let's be honest. In fact, a colleague of mine, Rakesh Karan, is coming out with a book on this, having looked at how we got in this position. But business schools 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago were trade schools, and then they tried to improve the intellectual depth and rigor and become much more disciplined. There's a danger in going too far so that we're too pure in that regard, and particularly with regard to teaching leadership. One of the reasons many schools don't want to have leadership classes is because they say there is no established framework for leadership like there might be for financial control, or like there might be for marketing consumer goods, or there might be for finance. But I think that just requires a different way to look at leadership, and I think business schools must become much better at teaching leadership. The question is, are we going to become a trade school? Do we just want to get all you guys jobs? Look, now I'm going to be very blunt, and you're going to hate me for what I say, but that's okay. There's two ways to look at this. The employers come here and they say, we want people that are really well-trained and discounted cash flow. They can run the model. They understand options pricing. They can do all that, and they're extremely good analytically. Yeah, they'll take all the time you will give them to do that for 5 years. But that's not leadership, okay? And 5 years or 10 years after you get out of school, all those techniques you learn are going to be largely irrelevant. At least all the techniques I learned are irrelevant. Statistical decision-making, we learned all about that, so we didn't do it. And I think the leadership is not. And leadership becomes very critical because you can't plan your career today. The odds are, statistically, you'll work for 7 to 8 different organizations in your lifetime. And you have no idea. Of these 125 people we talked to, even the senior people, none of them wound up where they thought they were going to be. None of them over 40. Now, one person over 40 wound up where they thought they were going to be. So you have no idea what the world's going to look like in 2057, 50 years from now, or even 2037. And so I think you need to prepare yourself for opportunities. I consider much of what you're doing now is preparing yourself for unknown opportunities. So when the opportunity comes, like Anne Mulcahy came to her, not expecting it, she was prepared to step up and lead. But that requires a lot of hard work, and I think it should start in business school. And I think we need to do a lot better at that. So where's the dean? Did he leave? He was here, so that was a pitch. Okay. Yes.
So it's interesting you talk about the responsibility we have to maintain our capitalistic system, and yet I'm in the communications business, and so we have such rapid communication. CEOs, like politicians, face immediate short-term goals because they're under scrutiny all the time. How do we juxtapose that immediate gratification, short-term requirements, meeting those with the responsibility of keeping our capitalistic system free and fully functional? And it has to do really with the demographics of the stockholders in the last 15 years have changed.
Well, I think you have to choose your stockholders, which, of course, we know is impossible. But, if you want to have the right stockholders, you got to tell them what you're there for. And just tell them. I used to say at Medtronic, you guys are going to think this is horribly arrogant. But I've talked to a lot of other CEOs about it, so it may not be quite as arrogant as you think. But I would just tell people, look, if you're only in this game for a short term, this may not be the right stock to hold. If you're looking for a little pop, because we don't know if we're going to go up or down today, tomorrow, for the next year. I can tell you over time, you're going to get great returns. I mean, the 13 years I was at Medtronic, we had 35% return. You're going to get great returns, but in any one given quarter or period, it goes up and down. You see that with Amgen right now, and what Kevin Shear is going through. It's down, but I mean, you're down. I think you just need to say, this is a growth-oriented company that's going to give you 15 to 18% growth every year in revenues and earnings, and it can sustain itself. It is a great company. If that's what you want, please buy it. But if it's not what you want, don't do it. I'm on the board of one company that has a 25-year outlook, and they just tell people this is what we can do over a 25-year period, but not 25 days. Now, there are other people that are kind of in it for a quick pop. They're doing a quick turnaround. They want to get turned. They want to sell it off. I understand that. Sometimes that's necessary. Companies are moribund. They need to be transformed, or at least need to be torn apart and put back together again. I'm not against that, but I think it's up to the leader of the organization to say to his or her shareholders, here's what we stand for. If you like that, buy the stock. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Frankly, the people that put the most pressure on me were people that had held the stock for less than 6 months or short sellers. Now, why as a CEO should I cater to short sellers? Can anyone give me a good reason why I should cater to short sellers? But they were the ones that put the most pressure on because they were looking for an event. They actually wanted to create an event or hear me say something that they could use as a reason to get other people to sell the stock short, and they make some money. This happens all the time. It's the nature of free markets. And I don't think I'm not advocating we change the system. I'm advocating leaders that say what their companies stand for and let the stock market take its course. I've been severely criticized for holding up people like Andrea Jung and Jeff Immelt and Sam Palmisano on national TV and saying these are great leaders, and people say, well, their stock hadn't done anything in the last 3 years. No, that's true, but they are building great companies, and I think that's what you want to look for. In the end, the shareholder value will follow. It has throughout history. The great value producers, of corporations are ones that build great entity. Even transaction houses like Goldman Sachs, they've stayed true to what they believe in since John Whitehead set the standards back in the 60s. Nothing has changed, and so, yes.
I wanted to ask about, our generation has a kind of a bad taste in our mouth from the 2-income household and the 50% divorce rate that came with it. And so what we've seen now is that a lot of women are leaving the workforce after getting a very accomplished professional degrees. Do you have any other ideas for how we can build or have both a great career, a great leadership experience, and a great household?
Yeah, I do. You want to take a shot at it?
If you've thought a lot about
I don't want to take it away from you.
Well, no, I mean, if you've got
you're going to face that
theory on it.
Well, I'm not sure that two-income households and 50% divorce rates are correlated. So I'd have to see some data before I accepted that premise, okay? But let's take this premise. Most of you are going to be in two-income households by choice, not by economic necessity, okay, like my sons and daughters-in-law are, okay? And the game has changed. When you have 2 full-time jobs and 2 children, that's 3 full-time jobs. Let's not kid each other. I have a son and daughter-in-law are both going to be surgeons, and they're going to have 3 kids, okay? You tell me that's not 3 jobs. It doesn't add up. Something's got to give. Something's got to happen in there. And the only thing, and I see, people burning out, leaving the workplace. A lot of people in our study left the workplace at 40 because they couldn't handle it. One person left the workplace for 7 years and came back after getting her kids raised and became CEO of Sara Lee. But I think my view is that corporations that want to attract the most capable people, and this is not the most capable females, the most capable people, males and females, are going to have to figure this out to have more variable career paths. Back to the Ann Moore comment, follow your compass, not your clock, that we're not going to have everyone go up in lockstep to a point where it's a pyramid system, and you get there. If you don't make this at 40, you're not going to make it at 45, and get away from that system. And, hey, we're going to live a long, you guys are going to live a long time, so what's the big rush? So let's give people, why not take time out? John Donahoe at eBay took off 6 months to be with his family, and he comes back a year later, he's CEO of Bain, worldwide managing director of Bain. Now he's at eBay. But, he was able to take that sabbatical. We had a number of leaders in our study that took sabbaticals, took time off, and came back into the workplace. My wife has come back in a different kind of way as a volunteer and is doing great things. I can think of a number of leaders who've done that. So we need to create more variable paths. This is hard for some companies, but I think companies that do it are going to get a lot better commitment from people and be able to attract better people to allow them to work part-time, no time, take a sabbatical, take time off, not just for a narrowly defined maternity leave, and this applies to men as well as women. And I think they'll find that you have more dedicated people over the long term. Now, you have to keep up during that time. One of the people in the survey, Denise O'Leary, is a great venture capitalist. She's taking time off to raise her family. She's getting back into it now as the family gets a little older. Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.